Okay, welcome everyone to this video where we'll be looking at some advanced explanations for a problem. This is useful. These structures are useful for problem and solution essays um, because they allow you to explain a problem and then the causes of that problem, or the results. Sorry, not the causes. The results of that problem, and that will really show off your higher level of English. So this video is for students who are quite high level of English already. If you are at a lower level of English, I strongly recommend that you come back to this video later on when you have a better idea of how the English, the grammar of the English language works. Okay, the rest of you, see if you can follow along. There are more basic versions of this and there are more difficult ones. So we'll be looking at the more basic stuff first. Okay, so let's have a look at the three structures that I'm talking about. And the three structures are the semicolon, the gerund form of the verb, and then the relative clause. Okay, and then we'll be looking at result and result in the next slide. But these are the main ones we'll be looking at this stage here. Okay, so let's have a look at this example sentence. One solution to the problem is to wash your hands regularly. Full stop. This would slow down the transmission of the coronavirus. Sorry for those of you who have had enough of listening to this. It just happens to be in the news all the time, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm stuck in my house and making this video for you. So unfortunately, today's lesson is based on this topic. Okay, so let's start with the most basic thing. The most basic one is the use of the semicolon. All you need to do is replace the sentence, replace the full stop or the period if you're in America with a semicolon and change this to a small t. That's very, very simple. And you'll say, well, what's the point of doing that? Well, because so few students know how to use the semicolon, it's actually a good thing to use because the examiner will go, oh, wow, they've actually learned how to use this. They know what its function is. So remember, as I said, this video is designed to show you how to give you give a problem and then you give the result of the problem, or the result of, in this case it's the solution. So here's the solution and here's the result of the solution. Okay, so if I use a semicolon, I'm showing that there's a connection between this solution and this result of that solution. By doing this thing, by washing your hands regularly, you will slow down the transmission. Okay, so semicolon, first most basic thing. Now we can use something called a gerund. A gerund is the ing form of the verb. Okay, so have a look at this one. One solution to the problem is to wash your hands regularly, slowing down the transmission of the virus. Here's the word result. The result is that it would slow down the transmission of the virus. Okay, and then this one here, these ones are more related to result. This one, with which, is a lot more universal. It's not just for result. It can be used for anything that needs extra information after it. So because it needs extra information, there must be a comma here. So don't forget the comma. So I've got a statement. I want to add any extra information. I use a comma and I put the word which, and then I explain more information. Okay, so this one here, one solution to the problem is to wash your hands regularly, which would slow down the transmission of the coronavirus. Okay, extra information to tell you what your action here, washing your hands, would do. Okay, so these three here, more basic forms that I can join two sentences together. Now you'll ask, well, what's the point? Why do I join two sentences together? Well, in the exam, the examiners are looking for your ability to show off your high level of grammar. And one of the things you need to do is to show dependent clauses. Now, some of you might know what, some of you might be wondering, what on earth is a clause? A clause is a part of a sentence that depends on another part of that sentence. And if you can use a dependent, let's put it together. If you can use dependent clauses in your writing, it really shows off your higher level of grammar. and that will improve your grade. Okay, so that's why this is perfectly acceptable to put a full stop and then capital T. This would, because, well, it's showing referencing. The word this refers to the washing your hands regularly and the solution. So that's fine. But if you really want to show off your grammar, you need to use dependent clauses. This technically is not a dependent clause, but this one certainly is, and so is this one here. Okay, I only put the semicolon for those of you who are at a lower level of English and just want to slightly bump up your abilities. Say, for example, you've got an exam coming up on Saturday. You don't have time to understand how this works. How about using a semicolon where there is a connection from here is the situation and here is the result. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Some examples. These are from today's news. Now, as I said, this is quite an advanced, this video is quite for advanced students. So if you find this difficult to understand, as I said, please come back to this video later on when you have a better understanding of the English language. Okay, so real life examples from today's news. You'll see that they used a semicolon here. So if you're showing symptoms of the virus, please do not visit your doctor's surgery. In this case, a surgery means a place where the doctor, his office essentially. Okay, so please do not visit your doctor's office, semicolon. The result is that, if you do this, the result is that you could pass on the illness to others who are already sick. Okay, so semicolon, very easy, and basically all it is just a full stop and then capital U to make it into a separate sentence. Okay, but by using a semicolon, I'm showing that there is a strong connection between this clause and, sorry, this sentence and the second sentence. In this connection, in this case, is result. Okay, now over here, this is from American news. Bernie Sanders is an American politician. He's keen to introduce universal health care. Universal health care is where you don't have to pay for healthcare. And in America, you have to pay for it. Some people go bankrupt because of hospital bills. So it's it's strange for many of us who are used to having free healthcare, but in America you have to pay for it. Okay, so keen to introduce universal healthcare to the USA, benefiting everyone in an epidemic such as the one we're facing now. So obviously the one we're in at the moment with the coronavirus. Now have a look here. I've used the gerund form of the verb by adding ing to it. Okay, and basically all it does is replaces this phrase here. Okay, this would benefit everyone in an epidemic such as the one we're facing now. Okay, and again, this is related to the result. Okay, if everyone had universal health care, the result would be that we wouldn't have such a problem as a pandemic. That's what they're saying in America. So many people don't want to go to the hospital to be tested because it costs them so much money to get tested. Okay, and look at number 3 here. There is a possibility of schools closing in the UK, comma, which would result in nurses who have young children having the extra financial burden of childcare. Basically what they're saying is that nurses have to work because they are what they call in this country, they call key workers. But if they have children who are not allowed to go to school, well, what are they going to happen? Who's going to look after the children? They have to pay a nanny, and financial burden is talking about money, right? So the nurses have to pay somebody to look after their young children at home. So this is one of the problems that the government in the UK is facing. All right, anyway, here I've got a comma and which. So it's not a result so much, it's just extra information. So there's a possibility of the school closing, extra information. This would result in nurses having financial difficulties because of childcare costs. Okay. Yeah, there's a possibility of schools closing in the UK. This would result in nurses having financial. Yeah, okay, it is a result, technically. It is. So the closing of the school is the problem, and then the result of this problem is that certain people will be affected. Okay, so I can use comma with which, with results as well. Okay, and yes, those are the three ways of doing it. These are the more basic ways of putting two sentences together, where there's the situation and then the result. Situation and then the result. Okay. Now there's a fourth way, which is the one here, which is even more advanced than these three. Okay, and that's using the word result. Okay, and we're going to be looking at those now. Let's have a look. Okay, so how to use gerunds, that's the verb with ing, with the word result. Okay, so let's have a look at this example here. In some hospitals, there is a shortage of basic medical equipment, and then this is the result. As a result, patients die unnecessarily, or the result is that patients die unnecessarily, or this results in patients dying unnecessarily. Okay, as I said before, these are fantastic sentences, grammatically correct, and would be no problem in an academic piece of writing. But say, for example, you've used this too much. As a result, you want to show off your higher level of English. You don't want to repeat yourself, and you also want to show that you can use dependent clauses, right? Some of you could say, hang on, there's a dependent clause there. The result is that there's one clause and there's another clause, but okay, you've made your point. But the fact is that these two here, 1 and 2, are not dependent clauses, and you can make them into dependent clauses. Okay. Right, so let's have a look at complex option number 1. Okay. So in some hospitals, there is a shortage of basic medical equipment, the result being that patients die unnecessarily. Okay. Notice it's not this results being, it's the result being. And so as a result, and the result is, yeah, so I don't know why I connected those two. This one is for this one here. Okay, it's very similar in structure, only that the verb is becomes a gerund form. So is as a gerund is being. Okay, so the result being, and then that stays the same. So if I see the result is that, I just need to change the verb is into the verb be. Don't forget the comma, and then everything else in the rest of the sentence stays the same. Okay. This one doesn't, as a result, doesn't really get converted, actually. It's just to show you what it basically means. We can say it like this, as a result. As I said, this is perfectly grammatically correct. Okay, but we're looking at this one here for complex option number 1. Look at complex option number 2. This one is for the third one here. Okay. In some hospitals, there is a shortage of basic medical equipment, resulting, notice this becomes the gerund, resulting in patients dying. That stays the same, unnecessarily. Okay, so for number 2 and number 3 here, I just need to change one part of the sentence into a gerund. For the option number 2, it's the word is. For option number 3, it's the word result. Okay, so we're going to try and keep in mind all of these different things when we do some practice next. Okay, so the result being that and resulting in, let's just put those down when we get to the practice so we remember them. So let's do the basic ones. Semicolon, comma, which, and the gerund. So verb ing with a comma. And then we have the result being that. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, and number 5, resulting in da 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 da, and then the verb ing, whatever it is in this sentence. Okay, so we're going to be using as many of these as we can in these practice sessions, in these practice sentences here. So let's look at the first one. Let's see which ones we can use. Some hospitals are replacing stainless steel surfaces with copper and brass. Can I use number 1? Certainly can, yes. So number 1 I can do. Can I use number 2? Which? So some hospitals, which kills? Good. So I just take away this. For number 2, I just take away this with a comma, and I can say which kills viruses and bacteria, but only if it's cleaned regularly. Great. What's the other option? 3. So which of the verbs become ing? We'll have a look here. Some hospitals are replacing stainless steel surfaces with copper and brass, killing viruses and bacteria, but only if it is cleaned regularly. Could I say that? Certainly can, yes. Number 3, I just changed this to killing. Okay, no problem. What about number 4? Some hospitals are replacing stainless steel surfaces with copper and brass, the result being that it kills, or even this. Result being that this kills, or result being that it kills. This, when I say it or this, it's the action of replacing all these with copper and brass. Okay. So yes, I can do number 4 as well. The result being that it or this kills viruses and bacteria, but only if it's cleaned regularly. So yes, number 4. Now number 5, let's see if we can do number 5. I just need to clear this up so that we don't get confusion here. So number 5. Some hospitals are replacing stainless steel surfaces with copper and brass, resulting in I need an object here, so resulting in killing. No, I can't. I need something here, so resulting in. Oh, I can do it. Those of you who are very advanced, you should know about the passive voice. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's coming up later in this course, so you will be we'll be looking at it. But don't worry if you don't know what I'm talking about. Move on, skip ahead in this video. But let's just quickly do it for those of you who are higher level. So some hospitals are replacing stainless steel surfaces with copper and brass, resulting in, let's do number 5, you can say it, resulting in viruses and bacteria. Now they become the subject of the sentence. Then move over here, and then I'm going to use being, and this becomes the verb 3, killed, but only if it's cleaned regularly. So those of you who know what I'm talking about, that's another option. I can use the passive voice if I need to have an object here, because I can't just put resulting in doing. Something needs to be done. Okay, so I need an object here. Okay. All right, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you want to know more about all these grammatical structures, please subscribe to my Mastering Grammar course, which is coming up after this, because this is focusing only on writing, but the higher level grammar stuff we'll be looking at in that course. Okay, let's have a look at, that's number 1. Let's have a look at number 2. Authorities are finding live viruses on bus seats and door handles in schools. This is unsurprising. No problem. Number 1 I can do. Which is unsurprising. Number 2 I can do. live viruses on bus seats and door handles in the schools. Being unsurprising since no. So number 3 is out. I cannot use number 3. Okay. Number 4, the result being that finding live viruses, the result being that this is unsurprising. No, it's not. It's not. There's no result here. So number 4 is out. Okay, and number 5 is out as well. There's no result in this case, so only number 1 and number 2 could be used for number 2. Look at number 3 now. Italian life largely revolves around social events. Okay, it's a bit of a, well, this is called hedging. We're going to talk about hedging here. If I did not put this word in, it wouldn't sound very correct. You're saying all Italians love socializing. Well, I know personally a few Italians who are quite antisocial, but yeah, so you're allowed to hedge here. So mostly, usually. So Italian life usually revolves around social events. As a result, Italy has seen a huge increase in the number of cases in the last week as people avoid isolation. People don't like to be stuck indoors away from their friends. Perhaps that's true. Okay, so as a result, suggests we can use number 4, number 5. Let's see if we can use number 1 first of all, and I would take away the word as a result. So let's see. Italian life largely revolves around social events, semicolon. Italy has seen a large increase in the number of cases in the last week as people avoid isolation. Yes, you could. You could use number 1 here. Just take away as a result. So let's look at number 2 then, with which. Italian life largely revolves around social events, which Italy has seen. No, number 2 wouldn't work. Number 3, just with the verb. No, number 3 would not work. But certainly number 4 or number 5, let's see which one could work here. So Italian life largely revolves around social events, the result being that Italy has seen. Yes, certainly. Nothing, no change here. The result being that, so just comma, the result being that Italy has seen a large increase. Okay, so number 4, certainly, no problem there. And number 5, resulting in. Okay, so Italian life, comma, resulting in Italy. Yes, certainly could. Which of these verbs changes to the ing form? The answer is the auxiliary has. So resulting, let's do it down here. Resulting in Italy having, and now seen, a huge increase in the number of cases. Perfectly grammatically correct, and you're just following the structure here because there's the object, Italy, so we're allowed to do it there, and then we just change the auxiliary verb has into the ing form. So look at number 4, this is the last one. The virus attacks only the lung tissue. This can result in severe breathing difficulties for elderly people or patients with underlying health difficulties. Okay, I'm just going to move this out the way. So look at number 1. The virus attacks only the lung tissue. Semicolon, no, because I need a subject here. There's no subject here. This is the subject, and if I take that out, oh, of course I can use it, yeah. Just use it, but with no change. So that just becomes a semicolon. Okay, that's fine. I can do that. So just change this to the small t. So number 1, of course, we can use every time. Number 2, the virus attacks only the lung tissue, which which can result in severe breathing difficulties. Yes. Okay, so number 2, just change this to which can, or which, basically. Okay. Number 2, fine. Number 3, ing. The virus attacks only the lung tissue, resulting in no problem. Resulting in severe breathing difficulties. Now, I know that I asked you to put the ing form of the verb. It's just, I need to put a little star here because you'll say, hang on, where's the ing form of this verb? Because it's essentially number 3 and number 5 are exactly the same. If you look at it here, I've just changed the verb ing into the word result. Okay. So what I'm saying here with the ing form, it's a gerund. A gerund is a type of noun formed from a verb. Okay, it's a bit weird. It's a type of noun formed from a verb. So when I said result in plus verb ing, result in or resulting in plus gerund, what I also mean is that you could use a noun, and later on it's going to be called nominalization. It's making nouns from verbs, not gerunds, not ing forms, but special type of nouns. Okay, so you can also use a noun here, and there you can see this breathing difficulties. So number 3 and number 5 working together, they can work here. Okay. And number 4, the result being that this one is trickier. The result being that okay, so number 4, the result being that okay, the more basic way is to say there are. So the result being that there are severe breathing difficulties for elderly people or patients with underlying health conditions. Okay. Actually, that's more common, isn't it? Conditions. I don't know where I got this example sentence from, but underlying health conditions is a much more common collocation. Okay. Now let's have a look at the other option. Now this one is a bit more tricky. It's similar to this passive voice, except that it's going to be active because I need to change this into the subject. So the result being that elderly people or patients with underlying health conditions, and now need a verb. What happens to them when I'm going to try and explain this without using the actual word, but it's impossible. Have. And you can also use the word face. Severe breathing difficulties. Okay, so listen to it. The virus attacks only the lung tissue, comma, the result being that elderly people or patients with underlying health conditions have or face severe breathing difficulties. So yeah, number 4 makes it a bit trickier for this one, and number 1 for number 1, it's number 5 that makes it a bit trickier because we need to use the passive voice. Okay, so some of this very advanced, some of it much easier. If you're not sure what you're doing, but you've got your exam coming up very soon, then number 1 is the safest one. Number 2 also, except for this one here, number 3 of the sentences here with the word which. But every other time you very able or very encouraged, in fact, to use the word which if you don't know how to use this more advanced stuff, number 3, number 4, and certainly number 5. Okay, I hope that's useful for those of you who are higher level English, and we'll be looking at this in a lot more detail. Passive voice briefly, nominalization later on in this course, as well as more of these gerund forms. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. This is my opportunity to just say to you that if you do have questions, the Facebook page or the Facebook group, which is the IELTS step-by-step community group, is very useful because I'm on there, other students are on there, even students who have since stopped using the course because they've finished the IELTS and they've gone on to university. Some of them like to help other students get them through the IELTS exam. So it's a great community, and people have really been helpful to each other. So please join it, and you can ask your questions there as well. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video where we get to the next section.